Ritual Night by StoryMan-Jack. 1. Runes. The hum of evening traffic seeped through the cracked window of my bookshop, a low and distant drone, like the pulse of a world I'd spent years dodging. Dust motes danced in the slanted light of a dying sun, filtering through the grime-streaked panes. I hunched over an Akkadian manuscript in my cramped office, the parchment's brittle edges rough under my fingertips as I traced the cuneiform's jagged lines. The faint scent of aged leather and mildew clung to the air, a comforting shroud for the ancient secrets that I guarded. My tongue carried the bitter aftertaste of cold coffee, forgotten in a chipped mug on the desk. This was my refuge, a fortress of paper and ink, shielding me from the life I thought I'd buried behind me. A sharp knock shattered my focus, the sound like a hammer on glass. I shot a glare at the door, the worn oak gleaming dully under the office's flickering bulb. Irritation prickled my skin. Damn, Natasha, my normally sharp-eyed assistant, should have intercepted whoever was about to upend my hard-fought peace. Come in, I rasped, my voice rough from hours of silence, throat dry as the desert. I braced for the chaos about to step into my carefully guarded world, the air suddenly heavy with anticipation. The door swung open with a creak, revealing a woman in her late 20s, her tactical gear crisp, a black fabric absorbing the dim light. Her green eyes cut like broken glass, sharp and unyielding, sizing me up with a cold, piercing stare that marked me as a problem before I'd uttered a single word. A handgun rested snug in her shoulder holster, its matte finish glinting faintly, and the subtle bulge at her ankle hinted at a backup piece. The FBI patch on her dark vest gleamed, a stark white against the shadows. Past her, I caught Natasha in the doorway, her head snapping up from a book at the counter, blue eyes narrowing, fingers twitching as if ready to weave something more than words. A faint shimmer danced across her knuckles, like heat rising from asphalt, a spark of magic I hadn't known she'd possessed. Silas Grey? The woman asked, her voice sharp, laced with a faint Irish lilt that stirred half-forgotten tales of Celtic magic. Only a linguist would have caught it, so faint it was. The words carried the crisp bite of authority, underscored by the soft rustle of her gear as she shifted her weight. I nodded, the motion slow, my chair's worn wood groaning under me like an old friend protesting an intrusion. Special Agent Katherine Finnigan, she snapped, her tone slicing through the musty air. My gut nodded as the FBI patch hit me like a cold slap. Damn feds, I thought, the Akkadian text dissolving from my mind like sand through my forgotten open fingers. Agents digging into me could unravel the secrets I'd buried to stay off the Elder Council's radar. I leaned back, the chair's splintered edge digging into my spine, and met her gaze, forcing a blank expression. Natasha's stare burned from the counter, her fingers brushing the book she read. The faint shimmer of her eyes now a pulsing glow, signaling unease I hadn't sensed before. The air around her seemed to hum, a subtle vibration that pricked my skin. And just what's the FBI want with a simple bookstore owner? I asked, my voice low, suspicion bleeding through like ink on wet paper. Decades of dodging the council had honed my instincts, and hers screamed danger, sharp as the metallic tang of the fear I tasted on my tongue. She tilted her head, lips twitching, with a mix of amusement and challenge. Pulling a notebook from her vest, she glanced at it briefly, pages crisp under her fingers. Silas Grey, 6'3", 50, expert in ancient languages and the occult. That is you, is it not? Her voice carried sharp edge, like a blade honed on secrets, and the faint scent of gun oil wafted from her holster, mingling with the shop's dusty aroma. I nodded, hands folded on desk, the scarred wood cool and the grounding beneath my palms. The shelves behind me loomed with heavy tomes, their leather spines cracked and faded, whispering of secrets I'd sworn to guard. That's me, I said, keeping my tone as flat as I could, though my pulse thrummed like a taut wire. Her green eyes locked onto mine, a faint smile hinting that she saw through my silence, her fiery red hair catching the light like a warning flame. She leaned forward, her jaw tight, a shadow of dread flickering in her eyes despite her steady posture. I hear you're an expert on the occult, Mr. Grey, she said, her voice low and urgent, each word heavy with unspoken fear. The air thickened, the scent of old paper sharpening, now laced with a faint, acrid undertone, like ozone before a storm. I knew that look. Cops who'd seen something in their world couldn't hold on to. Cop face, I'd called it once, and it chilled me to the bone. I gave a tight shrug, leaning back, the chair's creak a soft protest. I know more than most, I said, dodging her probe, though my pulse kicked up, a steady drum against my ribs. This shop was my haven, veiling my magic from counsel's eyes. Her eyes narrowed, fingers tapping the notebook, the rhythm sharp and impatient, not barring my act. There's something we need you to see, she said, her voice strained, like she was pushing past a wall of terror. Her shadow gaze said this wasn't a casual visit, and the air grew heavier, pressing against my chest like a physical weight. My tongue tasted the faint bitterness of my earlier coffee, now sour with dread. I exhaled, eyes narrowing, the desk's edge biting into my fingers. Unless it's critical, I've got a lot of work to do, I said as I waved over my desk, testing her, though my gut knew that I was already caught in something. Her jaw clenched, the notebook snapping shut with a sharp click, her gaze unrelenting. Natasha's breath caught at the counter, a soft gasp that cut through the silence. Her fingers gripping her book, a faint pulse of light tracing over her knuckles again, like she felt the same darkness creeping in upon my world. It is life and death, Mr. Grey, she said, subtle lilt talk, first pressing into the notebook, the leather creaking under the grip. She'd left Ireland before she could speak, I supposed, though the words cut deep, dragging up memories that carved into my heart. Gabby's laugh, her blood on the floor of that shabby apartment. I stiffened, fingers digging harder into the desk's scarred edge, torn between running and the pull of her desperation. The air grew colder, the bulb flickered, casting jagged shadows across the walls for a moment. Life and death, huh? I said, my voice rough, probing her resolve as old scars throbbed through me like fresh wounds. The office felt like a cage, her gaze pulling me into a fight I'd vowed to avoid. She nodded once, her silence heavy, the weight of it settling into my bones. She straightened, tucking the notebook away with a snap, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the quiet. I'm Special Agent Katherine Finnigan, she said, her voice firm, each word a command. The air crackled with her authority, trouble I couldn't outrun. The faint scent of her leather vest mingling with the shop's musty odor. I clenched my jaw, caught between defiance and the weight of whatever stake she held. My lips as dry as the desert as I swallowed hard. Right now? I asked, a spark of defiance in my tone, testing her urgency as dread coiled in my gut like a snake. Every instinct screamed me to stay hidden from the feds, the council's shadow looming in my mind. Finnegan's eyes tightened, her hand brushing her holster, the metal cool against her fingers. Natasha's gaze darted between us, a subtle warmth brushing my senses, her magic, probing Finnigan's intent, a talent I'd never felt from her before. It sent a chill through me, as sharp as a winter wind. "Now, Mr. Grey," Finnigan said, her voice a blade, leaving no room for argument. The office seemed to shrink under her will, her stakes pressing against my chest like a physical force. I exhaled, nodding, the pull of her mission drowning my instincts. Natasha's fingers trembling over her book, a faint shimmer rippling across her palm, like she saw the storm breaking, the air around her tingling with suppressed power. "Father God," I prayed silently, "please don't let this be something I can't handle without exposure." The words tasted like ash in my mind, bitter and fleeting, calling up to a God that may have abandoned me. I stood, the chair scraping the floor, a harsh grind that echoed my reluctance. Grabbing my Stetson, the brim soft and worn under my fingertips, I followed Agent Finnigan, the faint scent of her gun oil trailing behind her. "Natasha, lock up if I'm not back by dusk," I said, my voice tight, hiding the dread gnawing at me like a hungry beast. Couldn't be too long now. Finnegan's green eyes flickered back, sharp as flint, cutting through the dimness of the shop. Natasha nodded her head, hovering over her book, the warmth of her talent fading like she was cloaking it. If I hadn't been so tense, I'd have missed the faint pulse of light in her palm, like a heartbeat as her magic faded away. At the counter I paused, the air heavy with the weight of leaving my refuge. The shelves loomed like silent watchers, their musty scent now laced with the sharp tang of my own sweat. "Hold down the fort, will you?" I growled at her, eyeing Finnegan's shadowed form for any hint of what her game was. Natasha's blue eyes met mine, sharp with something unspoken, her fingers tracing her book, the faint shimmer flickering again, like she knew I'd trapped her, seen what she was and wasn't supposed to be. I nodded, doing my best to reassure the girl, though now that I'd seen her magic, I'd have to think about how my assistant came to me. Clearly, she was not just a student from the college. Her presence now a puzzle that prickled my nerves. Finnegan's voice sliced through the shop's dimness, crisp as a whip crack. "You're coming with me, Grey," she ordered, gesturing to the door with a snap of her wrist. My jaw tightened, old boots scuffing the worn floorboards, the sound dull against the shop's oppressive quiet. My mind raced. Am I a suspect? A pawn? Who the hell dragged me into this? The air tasted faintly of dust, coating my throat as I swallowed. Outside, Finnegan's black SUV waited under friendly Texas's flickering street lamps, its bulk a dark omen against the town's cracked facades, the paint peeling like old wounds from the buildings around us. Her boots hit the pavement with a sharp clack, the sound echoing as she slid into the driver's seat, hands clamping on the wheel with a tension that mirrored her voice. I climbed in, Stetson low, the leather seat creaking under me, its cold surface seeping through my jeans. My gut churned with the certainty that I was stepping into a snare, the faint scent of polished leather and Finnegan's gun oil filling the cabin sharp and invasive. Natasha's talent echoed faintly in my senses, fading like a warning, like a whisper lost in the wind, leaving me to face whatever game this was alone. Friendly streets slid past, their neon signs flickering like jarring stars, casting garish reds and blues across the sagging storefronts. Round bars faced churches on every other block, a grim irony that matched the despair etched into the faces we passed. Hollow-eyed locals shuffling through the dusk, their breath misting in the cooling air. The town was dying, like so many others, its decay a mirror, to the unease gnawing at me. Sharp as the ache in my knuckles as I gripped the armrest, the SUV's engine hummed, a steady pulse driving us deeper into whatever trap had my name on it. The air inside growing stale and tinged with the faint, metallic scent of my own desperate fear. "What exactly is your play here, Finnigan?" I asked, my voice low, barbed, digging for a crack in whatever armor she wore. Her jaw tightened, hands gripping the wheel harder, the leather creaking under her fingers, but she didn't answer. The silence was a wall, her eyes fixed upon the road, betraying nothing but the faint glint of streetlight, reflecting in her deep green irises. "Careful, Silas," a voice whispered in my head, my own instincts or something older. As I stared out the crumbling town, the air thick with the scent of asphalt and decay, I shifted, the seat creaking again, the Stetson's brim brushing my forehead, soft as a warning. "You been back to Ireland lately?" I asked, probing for anything to loosen her guard, the words tasting bitter with my own suspicion of what she was. She shook her head, eyes locked on the road, a micro surprise flitting across her face, quick as a shadow. "Parents dragged me there last year. Met my gran. Crazy old bat, but I liked her accent. It was rough, earthy." Her voice was clipped, giving nothing away, the faint lilt curling around her words like smoke. The SUV's hum grew louder as we turned, the tires crunching over loose gravel, the sound sharp in the quiet. I leaned back, tilting my Stetson low, just above my eyes, questions piling up like storm clouds. Wizards like me were rare, four-leaf clovers. In a world of billions, entangling with the feds was about the dumbest move I could possibly make. My grandfather's lessons echoed through my skull. Stay off the Elder Council's radar. Avoid the knights, their enforcers, and steer clear of the dark things that haunt the shadows, boy. Now at 50, I'd managed to dodge them all. That is, until now, the air tasted of regret, sharp and metallic, just like my fear, as I swallowed hard. "Who gave you my name?" I asked, my tone flat, cutting through the silence like a knife, the SUV's dashboard lights casting a faint green glow across my hands. Her eyes flicked to me, then back to the road, the motion quick as a snake's strike. "Marcus Abernathy, Deputy Director of Special Investigations, FBI." My blank stare must have tipped her off. The corner of her mouth twitched. "Just a moment. Someone called Ezra Grey. This shot before you did." I nodded slowly, unease deepening, a cold weight settling in my chest. That my Gramps, having fed friends, is news to me. "Abernathy is an old man, one of the oldest directors we have," she replied. Uh-oh, I thought. Those facts raised flags, bright red ones, sharp as the scent of pine and damp earth now filtering through the SUV's vents as we left the town behind. The council, 3 to 5 crusty old wizards styling themselves as barons, had eyes everywhere, and feds sniffing around felt like their kind of game. One I knew I wasn't ready for. And then there was this agent, Irish, magic gleaming in her aura, faint as a candle's flicker, but green like an emerald. "Druid?" I asked, testing her, the word heavy on my tongue. But she laughed, a sharp bark that cut through the cabin's hum. "Not likely. You sound like my gran." Her dismissal was quick, but her eyes flickered through doubt, the green catching the dashboard's lobe like the emeralds of her power. Finnigan's SUV rolled toward a 20-acre stretch of wild woods, the town's decay giving way to tangled brush, the air now thick with the scent of wet leaves and loamy soil. She stepped out, boots crunching gravel, the sound sharp against the rustle of the wind through the trees. "I want you to see it fresh, Mr. Grey," she said, her voice low, firm, her breath misting in the chilly dust. "I don't want my take skewing whatever revelations you have." I nodded, trailing her down a winding path, the ground uneven under my boots, brambles snagging my jeans with sharp tugs. But those same brambles and limbs of trees seemed to lean away from the girl agent, their gnarled branches swaying slightly, a subtle courtesy I doubted she even noticed. 10 minutes later, the woods opened into a small clearing, a sight that froze my blood, the air heavy with the copper tang of death and something darker, like the rot of maggoty meat laced with sulfur. A whisper brushed my ear, a voice I thought long gone. "Cabby." Faint as an autumn breeze, clawing at the memories of my lost wife. I flinched, pain spiking through me, sharp as a blade, my lips tasting the faint salt of sweat. Why her? Why would this bring thoughts of her? It had been nearly 30 years since I'd lost her, like 25. I didn't even know anymore. "There are 3 kinds of magic," I said, my voice steady, mechanical as Finnigan's eyes tracked my every move. Her silhouette stark against the clearing's dim light. "Wizardry, druidry, and this. This is witchcraft." I paused, the word heavy, tasting of ash. "And it's for feeding." "Feeding on what?" she asked, her voice sharp, cutting through the clearing's heavy air, her boots shifting on the damp earth with a soft squelch. I studied the ritual circle carved into the earth, jagged rocks framing 6 bodies in a pentagram at 5 points, one at the center. Runes painted in blood pulsed with dark intent, their crimson lines glistening under the moonlight like wet wounds on the earth itself. The girls were clean, save for single slashes across their throats, the cuts precise, the blood long dried into the soil. "Pain," I told her, "suffering, chaos." I held my voice low, the words bitter on my tongue. "Whatever the spirit craves. Always. Those dark things demand sacrifice." "Demons?" she snorted, her tone skeptical but shaken, her fingers tightening on her holster, the leather creaking softly in the night breeze. "Or older things," I said, shaking my head, the motion slow as the weight of the clearing pressed down upon me. "Whispers of power from shadows time forgot. God have mercy on their souls," and I made the cross across my chest. My voice thickened, Gabby's name echoing in my mind, a ghostly whisper against the rustle of the leaves. "Not witches. Damn it. Not again. Oh, Father, help us all," I prayed. Finnigan stood silent, staring at the circle, the copper tang of death thick in the air, now laced with the faint, sickly sweetness of overdue decay. "Witches don't have power on their own, you know," I said, circling the site, but keeping my distance from the bodies, the damp grass slick beneath my boots. "They borrow it through contracts, dark and ugly deals. The runes, the arrangement felt familiar, like a ghost from my past, their pulsing dark glow searing into my wizard's vision. "Gabby," I whispered, the name slipping out without my knowledge, tasting of grief. "Yes, your wife?" Finnigan asked, her voice softer, eyes flickering to me, green softened by the moonlight. "Abernathy mentioned her." I swallowed, the old raw wound tightening my throat as if I choked with dust and ashes. They never found her body, just a pool of blood. They said if she bled that much, she had to have been dead. They just couldn't find her body. My voice was hollow, a dead echo, the air around me cold, biting through my jacket. Fuck, the woman breathed, raw and sharp, her breath misting in the chill. Yeah, pretty damn much, I said, the fire of old loss flaring, hot as the ache in my chest. I opened my third eye fully, the scene searing into my mind, blood-soaked robes, swirling shadows of black magic, the stench of death sharper, more real, sulfur and brimstone and rot choking into my senses. This is just the start, I said, pointing to a rune I recognized, his jagged lines pulsing like a heartbeat. Initiation, a slow build. More of these will come. Sacrifices, one way or another. Peaking at around Samhain, I would think. The agent nodded, eyes on the body's moonlight casting long shadows across their still forms. Yeah, I got that much from Google. Halloween, right? Yeah, sure as shit, I growled, the words rough, tasting vile in my throat. They were clean, neat, drugged or willing, you think? Her voice was steady, but her fingers trembled slightly, brushing her vest. Could be either, I said, shrugging, the motion heavy, my shoulders tight with tension. So, some crazy or crazies out here believes in this occult crap. They kill a bunch of girls wanting power, huh? She demanded, her glare slicing through me, sharp as the wind now picking up, rustling the trees. Or, I said, hardly able to use my voice, it's something worse. I paused, meeting her gaze, the green of her eyes stark against the clearing's now gloom. Actual witches, making sacrifices to dark entities. She snorted, the sound harsh, her glare unrelenting. Yeah, right. So says the child of the earth, I said, half smiling, testing her, the words light but heavy with my intent. She froze, eyes narrowing, the air between us crackling faintly, like static. I can't even grow a tomato plant, Gray, she said, but her tone held a flicker of doubt, her lips twitching as she handed me her card, the paper smooth and cold. Do some research on these symbols, these runes. You're going to need to stick around for this mess. I'll be able to pick your brain, if nothing else. I nodded, the weight of the clearing pressing down upon me, the damp earth clinging to my boots, the sulfurous rot lingering in my nostrils. Yeah, the runes, I'll dig into those, I said, not mentioning the dark patterns I'd seen with my mage sight. Their oily sheen burned into my mind forever. This could happen again, I stuttered, but I wouldn't think for a while. Sacrifice this like this. They take time to set up. Why? She asked, her card still in my hand, the ink sharp under my thumb. You don't find victims overnight, Agent, I said, the words heavy, tasting of truth. Watch the missing persons lists and pray. She nodded to me, though. My prayer comment went right over her head, and we headed back to her SUV, the clearing shadow clinging to me like damp cloth, the air growing colder as the sun finished its setting, the scent of pine and decay fading as we left the woods. Friendly's decay loomed beyond, a different sort of thing, a town rotting under the weight I couldn't yet name, the neon signs flickering like ghosts. Whoever pulled my name into this, Finnigan was either their pawn as well or their player, and I was caught in the middle. The taste of dread sharp on my tongue, even as I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. The SUV's rumble faded as I stepped into my bookshop. The doors creak, grim echo in Friendly's dusk, like the groan of a coffin lid. I flipped up the open sign so that it said closed, and the faded cardboard rough under my fingers, and slid the bolt home with a dull thunk that reverberated through the quiet shop. The air inside was thick with the familiar scent of dust. "Nat," I called, voice rough, scraping by my throat like sandpaper. "Come on, you're off. I'll take it from here and lock on up." The shop answered with stillness. Its shelves loomed like silent judges, their leather-bound tomes casting long shadows in the dim glow of a single lamp. The floorboards creaked under my boots, each step stirring faint motes of dust that danced in the amber light, a quiet rebuke of my intrusion. I fished my phone from my pocket, the screen's cold glass slick against my palm. No messages from the girl nor missed calls. "Nat!" I tried again, boots scuffing toward her usual spot behind the counter. The worn wood scarred from years of use. A scrap of paper waited, her neat scrawl cutting through the dim light like a blade. "Hey, there's a Fed in your office. Said to leave, and the Bureau would cover my time here today. Trust him, boss." The words hit me like a punch, the faint scent of Natasha's lavender hand cream clinging to the note, a jarring contrast to the shop's musty odor. My gut twisted again, the taste of dread sharpening, metallic and cold. "Son of a bitch," I muttered, wadding up the note and shoving it in my pocket. The words were sharp with unease, my breath stirring the air, heavy with the weight of what I viewed as betrayal. Natasha's note hid more than it said. She wasn't just a college kid, not with that shimmer of magic I'd caught earlier, pulsing like a heartbeat in my memory. What game was she playing? Was it all one game, or a bunch of other games? Or was I a pawn in some grander scheme? The thought prickled my skin, a chill that lingered like damp cloth upon my entire body. I stalked to the back, noted the office door was ajar, its hinges squeaking faintly as I pushed through. The air grew denser, laced with the faint, sharp scent of tobacco and polished wool, alien in my sanctuary. An elderly man in a sharp charcoal suit perched behind my desk. Thumbing through my Akkadian translation, what I'd done of it so far, like it was a morning paper, the pages ruffling softly under his manicured fingernails. His bowler hat sat neatly beside him. It looked a pristine surface, like an old world touch that didn't match the glint in his eyes, sharp as a hawk's cutting through the office's dimness. The bulb above flickered, casting jagged shadows against his lined face, and the air tasted faintly of static, like a storm brewing in the confront of space. "Marcus Abernathy, I presume," I growled, leaning against the doorframe, Stetson low, the brim soft and worn under my thumb as I pulled it. My voice echoed slightly, swallowed a bit by the shelves' oppressive weight. "Elder Abernathy, to you, Wizard Grey," he corrected, his English accent sharp and crisp, carrying the weight of years beyond 60 that he looked. He tapped my notes, a faint smile curling across his lips, the sound of his finger against the paper, a soft thud. "Impressive. Akkadian cuneiform, decoded without spoken inflections. Even the gnomes haven't cracked that yet." His words were smooth, but the air around him hummed with power, a subtle vibration that prickled my scalp. "Well, hell," I said, my jaw tightening, the desk edge biting into my hip as I shifted my weight. The council knowing my work wasn't news I wanted, and the scent of his tobacco lingered heavy and cloying, like a warning. Don't look so shocked, Silas. He leaned back, his eyes sharp despite his age, the chair's leather creaking under his slight frame. We've known about you since the day you were born, at least some of us. Out of respect for Ezra, we kept our distance. His voice was calm, but the words landed like stones, each one stirring the dust in the air, the faint scent of mildew sharpening. Bullshit, I snapped, crossing my arms, the fabric of my jacket rough against my skin. Gramps would have burned this damn shop down before letting you near me. The memory of Ezra's gravelly voice stung. The taste of his whiskey flickered in my mind, and a ghost of our old talks. Abernathy's smile didn't even waver. Patient as stone, his eyes glinted like polished steel. Minutes ticked by, the office's dim bulb flickering again, its buzz a soft, insistent drone that grated on my nerves. The silence grew heavy, pressing against my chest until I broke it, my voice rough as gravel. What the hell do you want? He shrugged, a gesture too casual for the weight in his voice as he spoke, the air shifting with the faint rustle of his suit. You are needed. This filth. He spat the word, his lip curling. Stinks of the same darkness that took your wife from you. He paused, nodding at something on the desk, the motion deliberate. And I have something for you. Something of a gift. A ring gleamed in the lamplight, platinum, set with a black jewel, a silver cross etched into the jewel's heart. Runes traced the wide band, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat I couldn't hear, their faint glow casting eerie shadows across the deck's scarred surface. The air around it hummed as I took notice, a tactical vibration raised the hair on my arms, and the faint scent of ozone brought sharp and electric cut through the tobacco's heaviness for a moment. And what's this? I asked, my voice low, dread coiling tighter, a cold weight in my gut that tasted of ash as I looked at what I construed to be a set of handcuffs. It is nothing more than a ring, Silas, Abernathy said, as if it were obvious, his voice smooth and polished as wood. Passed from master to apprentice. Normally that is father to child. Your grandfather's. It marks you as a knight of this council, he said. His voice hit me like a fist, the air growing colder, the bulbs thicker, casting his face in stark relief. A what? I stepped forward, hands gripping the desk edge, the wood grounding into my palms, trying to quell the storm in my chest. The ring's hum grew louder, a soft buzzing that vibrated in my bones, and the scent of ozone sharpened, drowning out all other scents, like the storm was about to break in this very room. Abernathy stood barely 5.5 feet, his bowler hat now in his hand, the felt smooth under his fingers. I know Ezra's history with the council as he told them to you. Must confuse things, he said, his smile wry, the air shifting with the faint rustle of his cloak. He always said any group that'd have him wouldn't worth joining. He was misquoting anyway. The man moved past me, a hand brushing my shoulder, light but deliberate, the touch cool through my jacket. It's time that you, the Greys, took their place upon the council, Silas. Meditate on it, as Ezra taught you. His voice was soft, but the words carried weight, sinking into me like stone. Tell you what, I'll pray on it, I said, my voice hard, meeting his gaze, air between us crackling faintly, the taste of ash once again upon my tongue. He nodded. That Wizard Grey is the same thing. A flicker of respect in his eyes, and then he went to slip out, the door squeak fading into the shop's quiet. He paused one more time. Hold on to that faith, dear boy. You will need it before this is over. And then the shadows closed in, the bulbs buzzed softening, and I sank into my chair where the old man had once sat. Its worn frame groaning under me, the leather cruel against my back. I stared at the ring, its black jewel with embossed cross glinting like an unblinking eye, and then the runes pulsing faintly, almost like a warning. Damn it. Should have stayed in bed today, I muttered, the words bitter. The weight of secrets, Natasha's, Abernathy's, whatever Finnigan's game was, all tied together in a neat little package. And now this damn ring, pressing down upon me like a noose pressing against my neck, thickening the air, but not dispersing the scent of blood and coppery death upon the breeze of a storm it looked like I could not outrun. Thank you for listening to this episode of Ritual Night by StoryMan-Jack. Please leave any comments, likes, disapprovals, harsh critiques, good critiques, whatever. The next episode, I hope, will release 1 week from today. Once again, I thank you, and remember, your life is your story. Try and make it a great one. Good day.